Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Conn Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media, AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget you can read my work on ESPN.com. And if you want to become a club member, you can go to the Empire Media YouTube page, see the word join, click on that, join, find whatever level membership you like. I've been doing weekly Zooms, pretty much weekly Zooms with the gold members. I hope they enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it. Always a good little session. They get to ask me any questions. I'm going to bring on guests. I've brought on other guests. We'll bring on more guests. So do that and have some fun, because this has been a fun season for you and for everybody, folks. It's fun to write about. It's fun to watch. It's fun to be a part of it. So anyway, one last little programming note. I will be back after the Commanders game against the Dallas Cowboys. Of course, the regular season finale. How about that? Kind of different to say just the regular season finale, because there's more football after that. Now, I'm not going to record my podcast until I know who the Commanders will play in the first round of the playoffs. That will be determined by Tampa Bay and the Los Angeles Rams. Now, if Tampa Bay loses, who they play at 1 o'clock Eastern time, if they lose, then Washington would play at the LA Rams. But if Tampa wins and then we have to wait to see what the Rams do at 4:25. So if the Rams go out and win, then Washington, if the Rams win, Washington plays at the Rams. That's the bottom line. And we will probably not know what time or day the game is until after the Sunday night game. So the podcast will be out before that, but you can check on ESPN.com. I'm sure you'll find out when and where it is. And so there will be a lot of programming next week from me on the podcast to get you ready for the postseason. So anyways, just know that. So check back, but I will have the podcast out after the game. All right. So before I get to my 5 things, I think let's get to some news, because there's some news that you need to know and some things that you'll want to know. So let's get to the first things. First of all, 3 guys ruled out. Marshawn Lattimore, no surprise there. Not going to play Sunday. Tyler Owen, safety, he's out. Jordan McGee, he's out. I don't know the status for those guys. I think Dan Quinn made it seem like they were kind of close. Certainly with Lattimore, he said he was very close. And so, it's possible. I think there's I don't know what the chance is he's coming back for the playoff game, but it certainly sounds like there is a definite chance that he returns for the playoff game, and they need him for the playoffs. Like whoever they play next week, whether it's the Rams or the Bucks, you're going to want to have Marshawn Lattimore out there, a healthy Marshawn Lattimore, because if he goes out there hurt or has their hamstring and he gets hurt again, not going to help them, because they do, it's going to be you need to have really good corner play if you're going to want to advance in the playoffs with the teams they're going to be playing. So they could use him for sure. All right, a couple other guys. Tyler Biadasz, doubtful with his ankle injury. Saw him limping around, walking with a little bit of a limp while he was on the field today, walking over to the offensive line stuff. Cornelius Lucas, he's doubtful as well. Austin Ekeler, he is questionable. I think there's a good chance that he will be activated on Saturday and play on Sunday. So, and I don't know who the corresponding cut would be. It's possible that one of these guys who are hurt could go on IR. I don't know that. That's just speculation. Then you'd have to look. I don't think they would cut a guy like Chris Rodriguez. He's been helpful for them. So I don't know. And it could be they have, depending on if De'Ami Brown is questionable. So if he plays, then you could always make a move maybe with KJ Osborne. I don't know. Anyways, we'll find that out tomorrow. But the bottom line is there's a good chance that Austin Ekeler will be playing on Sunday. So let's get to the 5 things I think. I think we all need to settle down and take a deep breath on Cliff Kingsbury. Yes, he said the other day that he would like to coach again at some point. I think people heard that and thought, oh my God, it might happen this year. At some point means at some point. It doesn't mean I am ready right now to be a head coach. Again, now, could it happen? For sure. But I do not think that, oh my God, the fact that he said it, he has said all year, if and when I'm in this position again, I would do this based on what I learned from Dan Quinn. If I'm in this position again, I would do this. Clearly, this is something that's on his mind. Clearly, it's something he knows he'll be confronted with. again at some point. Then it's decide, do you want to do it? Well, yeah, he would like to do it at some point. So take a deep breath on thinking that he's a one and done here. I'm not there yet at all, for a couple of reasons. One, I will start with the money aspect. He's being paid by Arizona through 2027. He's getting like $7.5 million a year from the Cardinals. Financially, he doesn't have to make a move. Now, could somebody come and say, we'll give you $10 million a year? Well, sure. But are you really going to do that based, like, you're not doing that for someone unless you think they're special. I don't think we're at that point with him as a head coach that you can say that. If it was, if Mike Vrabel commanded that, he's got his track record of success as a head coach, right? Somebody that has more, or somebody, who's done more with less, whatever it is, if Mike Tomlin comes free, okay, but I don't know that Kingsbury is going to command that kind of coin or that kind of attention from another team. We know that Chicago would like to interview him based on what my colleague from ESPN, Courtney Cronin, has reported. So, and that makes sense. Caleb Williams, there's a connection there. So, but again, not a guarantee of the league because he's being paid, and he's told me it's not about the money. Now, it's easy to say that until you get an offer, but the bottom, again, 7.5 per year to not be the coach of the Cardinals through the 2027 season, that matters. Then maybe the biggest thing, bigger than that, is Jayden Daniels and the situation in Washington. I've got to tell you, man, like, you talk to people close to him and how happy he is to be in the role he's in. Like, there are people close to him that say, like, when he was in Arizona, they could feel the wear and tear on him from being a head coach and having to make those decisions, not being able to be the kind of coach you want to be, which is what he's able to do in Washington. Before they even drafted Jayden Daniels, his brother told me that they went out to dinner. He's like, he could see how happy he was in April before they drafted Jayden Daniels. After they drafted Jayden Daniels in the spring, he's talking about how happy he is to work with him because of the work ethic, because of the kind of person he is. Like, you don't get those chances too often to work with guys like that. Now, he's had a few because he's worked with Mahomes, he's worked with Mayfield, he played alongside Tom Brady, right? He was there at USC with Caleb Williams, but it's hard to get that in the NFL. So he has a guy that matches his work ethic, and that matters. So is that going to preclude him from going somewhere else? No. But I will say, I do think that absolutely, absolutely, absolutely matters because, and I think he also knows, like, yeah, could Washington take a step back next year for whatever reason? Is that all? Anything's possible in this league. But I think that if you're, let's say that even happened, okay, well, then you go out and do it the next year because guess what? With this kid, with Jayden Daniels, you're going to have that success. You can have a chance for success at any year. And the more you build around him, the better off he's going to be, which means the better off you'll be. In other words, it's not Bobby Slowick where it's like, you got to strike while the iron is hot. I think if you're with Jayden Daniels for 3 or 4 years, you're going to have 3 or 4 really good years as a coordinator. Bottom line. That's the point. Like, you do not have to rush out and get that. What jobs would tempt you right now? Would New Orleans? Hell no. The Jets? Hell no. The Giants, if that comes through, what's there? Unless you think Sanders or Cam Ward are going to be the next big thing, that's not going to be enough. That wouldn't be enough, I don't think, to tempt him. I think, the Bears would be interesting because of Caleb Williams, but that ownership group what have they proven there? They haven't shown that they can build anything. Like, it's been a goofy organization. Like, is that really, as Dan Quinn told us on Friday, if you're going to dip your toe into this coaching thing another time, you're going to be very picky because you know what matters to you. And some of the stuff that Kingsbury talks about is more internal. Like, he knows he had to lay a better foundation the way Quinn did here and setting a standard immediately. What are the expectations right now? Like, he said that when he started doing that in Arizona, it was too late. Like, you don't even realize that until you have the adversity. And here they had adversity. They lost 3 in a row. Nothing changed. There was no panic. It was take the same approach, and they got out of it. That's what didn't happen in Arizona when he was at Arizona was a head coach. But you also need to have the right ownership, the right GM, the right people around you. So I think there's a lot that he had to learn that he's still learning from Quinn. And so I just think that he told me this is as enjoyable a year as he's had. Like, you don't leave that just for anything, just because, I want to be a head coach again at some point. Okay, that's fine. And it's always easier to say no right now before you have any offers. I know that. Marty Schottenheimer one time said he'd never work for an owner like Dan Snyder, and 3 weeks later, guess who he's working for? Things change. But I'm just telling you, like, I'm not taking it as a slam dunk that, oh, yeah, he's going to leave at the first opportunity. I do not think that at all, and at all. So there you go. All right, number two. I think with Ekeler coming back, I want to give some props to two guys who have been assuming Ekeler's back on Sunday, and that's my assumption as I talk right now, unless something changes Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon. But let's give some nods. I think Chris Rodriguez and Jeremy McNichols deserve a lot of pats on the back for how they played this year. And McNichols has been on the roster all year. See, Chris Rodriguez been up and back and forth the last few weeks now on the roster, but they've both done a really good job. And so I wanted to talk about them for a minute because I think it's deserved. And it's not like Rodriguez has gone crazy. He did a really good job a few weeks ago against Tennessee, really good game. Since then, he only has I think it's not a lot of yards, only like maybe 20, 30 yards, something like that. He had 16 last week, but it's how he's getting them. It's what he's showing in those carries. Like, I just think he's at a good spot right now for it. And I give him a lot of credit because a lot of this is just for him. It's a comfort level. And let me give a couple things. He has 173 yards for the season. It's not great, but for what he does, it's been very good. One thing I like, he's averaging 2.49 yards after contact. Last year, it was 2.12. So here's where I think a difference is in his game. And this is something, okay, only 23 yards the last 3 games combined. But I think what a lot of this, to me, the success stems from for him, it stems from a comfort level. And he told me that last year, he would try to run over guys. He wanted to show his power. So he said that a lot of times he kind of look at the ground and just like, it's just looking, running over a guy, like show the power. Well, now he feels like he's got more comfort level and and it's allowed him to maybe to make some better moves, see the holes better. Like there were some holes against Tennessee where it's like, that was just really good vision that I don't know that we saw last year. I saw the power last year. I expected him to have a really good training camp because I thought he would take that step. Well, it took a while because I didn't feel like he looked as good in training camp as I would have, and as I anticipated. They liked him enough to keep him, of course. And it's funny because one thing he told me is that he didn't even tell his family, he didn't tell most of his family that he had been cut. He's like, why bother him? I know I'm coming back. And he said that when people found out, they started calling him. He's like, I'm coming back. In fact, he goes, I'm already here about to sign, so don't worry about it. But he's got that confidence now. And this is, I think that matters for back. And it's allowing him he's seeing the second level better. I think he's running with more patience. But again, it's the confidence. And this is what he told me about why he feels he is running better.
Say like our last 4 games, I felt like not even that things have just gotten slower, but I have became more confident.
Okay.
I wouldn't say there's a specific point, but for a lot of it, it's just during those games.
But you're running. You look like you're running with confidence. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I am, which I am, and that just comes with repetition. When you know what's going on and who's blocking who, it makes everything a lot easier.
So that matters. Again, confidence matters, and it allows you to play at a different speed with a different patience. And I think a lot of veterans, you see that when you play with that confidence, or when you know what you're doing, it just means it's just different. As far as McNichols goes, one of the things I've really been impressed with him is the pass protection. I'm going to focus on that a little bit more. He protects quarterback really well. Last week he had a play where he went up, he basically took out 2 blockers. Now, it wasn't designed like them, but it's the way he was able to get in there. He took care of one blocker and then someone else coming through, and he was able to get his body on him a little bit. So basically he took care of 2. That's the guy's not big. Like, he's not a big guy at all. But one thing that he told me, like when he was in college, he was roommates with Brett Rippon, Mark Rippon's nephew. So he told me that, and he said his job was to protect him, and he was not going to let anybody get to him because that's basically his brother, essentially, right? That's who he's living with. And so he had to protect him. So this was drilled into him in college because it was survival for his roommate. But it hammered home. It created a mindset for him. And I think when you have guys like that who have that kind of mindset, it makes a difference. And I think you watch him, you watch the way he runs the ball. He had that 4th down and 5 catch. He gets an extra yard because of that same kind of mindset. When you have that, man, you get guys like that fighting for extra yard. I was surprised by how well he ran early in the year when he filled in for Eckler the first time in Arizona. Like he did a really nice job, and that opened my eyes because like here's a guy that's bounced around the league. Like, what are you expecting from him? It's not like he's been a Pro Bowler here, but he's been a guy at the end of the roster who, when they have needed him, has always come through. 4th and 5, pass over the middle, gets an extra yard, keeps the drive going, and it basically allows you to win the game. So, it's really good what he's done. But again, like to me, like I've been talking about these kind of guys, these kind of players, the Sheldon Days of the world, Jalen Holmes and McNichols, because I think when you have guys like this down who are not the primary guys who can come in and contribute when they're needed, it makes you 11 and 5, right? That's what you need to keep going. Anyways, this is what he told me about the mindset he has and protection, like why it's a big deal.
I don't care who it is. They're not getting to a quarterback. I don't care how big you are, how fast you are. It's just you're gonna stop where we're gonna meet each other, and I don't look forward to going backwards into the quarterback lap. So just protecting him is the biggest thing for me.
So there you go. McNichols, Rodriguez, they've been, again, they're not stars, but they've absolutely helped when they've needed. And, to me, Rodriguez has earned more time. I don't know that he's going to get it. I mean, I know they really like Brian Robinson, and I'm not, I don't think he's going to be a star, but I do think that whenever Rodriguez goes in, he is creating extra yards. He had the touchdown last week where the little, I think it was like the 4-yard run, but he makes the guy miss. But it's also like, as he told me on that one, you see a defensive back, like you're not supposed to get taken down if you're him in that situation, but he feels like he's able to put more moves on guys because he's running with better vision, keeping your head up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the bottom line is when they've needed them, they've come through. Number 3, I think it's going to be fun to watch the Terry and Jaden connection continue to grow. And that you obviously know by now, they both made the Pro Bowl. And it's just, it's fitting. So I'm going to take you back to the spring because this is when you knew, first of all, I kind of thought that Jaden Daniels, I thought he was going to be a good quarterback. That's why I thought they should pick him. There was nothing he showed on film. There was nothing I learned about him through the process that suggested he'd be anything other than a good quarterback. And then the more you're around him, the more you start to hear from teammates in the NFL about him, the more you're convinced like he's going to be really good. So by the time we talked to Terry in the spring, I already had a feel like this kid's going to be good, right? At least I did. And I think others did too, who were around it, but really thought that this kid could be really good. So we talked to Terry in the spring. He talked for more than 20 minutes, which was a long time to talk in the spring. You don't typically let the guys go for more than 10 minutes or so when they're basically at the podium or in front of like a press gathering rather than just off the field. That's a long time to talk. But he went on and on because of his excitement for what was going on in Washington. And he started talking about Jaden Daniels, and he's talking about what all the good things he saw about him and all that. But to me, it wasn't so much what he said, because we've heard this before. It was the way he looked. It was the look in his eyes, the look on his face was like a kid who just got the toy he wanted for Christmas. And that's how McLaurin came across. So the next day I saw him at practice. We were at practice, must have been in the mini camp, but we were at practice and saw him walking on the field. And I was kind of about 10 feet from him and I told him, I've never seen you look like that before. He goes, the dude is legit. So this is in June. He already knew at that point, the dude is legit. That's the connection they had. So then you look into training camp and you saw the connection develop. You saw them throwing some back shoulders. You saw them working some plays and creating in situations that maybe called for an adjustment on the route. And he would do that. So you saw that happen. You saw the chemistry developing, and you knew that what a good deep ball thrower Jaden Daniels is and what a good deep go route runner Terry McLaurin is. Now he's running a lot more go routes this year. He's had I think over 340 some yards on go routes this year. That's obviously more than 100 yards way more than 100 yards over what he had last year. He's really good at that, but he's also, and Daniels throws with a lot of trust to him. You see him the tracking ability. This is something that coaches have talked about with McLaurin, how well he tracks the ball. It's not easy. He's not just catching over the shoulder. It's catching it, looking up like that. If you see me, I'm on the video. If you're listening to it, it's kind of hard, but you're looking up and looking back. It's not just looking over the shoulder. He's really good at that because he works at it. And that's the other piece of this puzzle. Like one of the things that McLaurin has talked about too is that they both have a shared work ethic that makes a big difference. When you have two guys who work that way, they communicate so often via text, in meetings, on the field, like you develop a rapport that just allows you to develop your game. And I think, they've missed some, but they've been aggressive and they're going to continue to be aggressive. And they, like shoot against New Orleans, they could have had 3 touchdowns on that, or 2 touchdowns and then a pass interference. It should have been that. Instead, it was 0 for 3. Bottom line though, is he's open then, and Jayden Daniels looks for him. There's some games it's hard to get to him like that, but it's not a matter of like, oh, they're shutting him out. It's like sometimes it doesn't go that way. But what I like with Daniels, with McLaurin, is how mature he is in dealing with him. Like he understands when McLaurin might need a pick-me-up. McLaurin understands the same thing about Daniels, but he will go over to McLaurin and give him some of the same stuff he'll give him in terms of not advice, but just encouragement. Like, you're going to get it. We got you, whatever it is. Like Daniels understands it, but it's building that relationship. And I think it's something that's going to be fun to watch. Okay, number 4. I think we need to be a little bit patient with Ben Sinnott, and I think we need to continue to appreciate Zach Ertz. So first start with Ertz. So he's had a really good year, very good in the red zone, one of the better tight ends in the red zone in the NFL. And we've seen that a couple of times with the touchdown pass last week, just what he's able to do inside there. But what I really appreciate with him is how he continues to work at his job. And you see this all the time. McLaurin does this, like some of these veterans do it, but you see him before practice with tight ends coach David Rye, just always working on footwork drills. And like I talked about this in the spring, and I saw it in the spring, saw it in training camp, and you still see it. Going out there before practice, working on his footwork, and it could just be on a route, it could be on a block, but he's always working on that. And Rye had told me that one of the things that really jumps out with him, because I was talking to him about this in the lobby the other day, about like how I enjoy watching Ertz run routes, because there's that savviness to him. It's almost like if you play ball at the YMCA, those guys, or in the gym, like, those older guys who like, he doesn't have quite his fastball anymore, but he can play and beat you because he knows how to play. He knows the angles to attack. He knows how to do this. That's what Ertz is, right? And so you watch like the touchdown he had against the Falcons, and it was man coverage, but you've got to be patient on the route. If he had gone too quick on that route, it's not a touchdown. But that veteran patience, understanding to set it up, take your time, take the deep breath, widen that route, cut back inside, boom, touchdown. That's what he does. So, but it's also, and again, it's for Rye, he said it starts with his footwork. And again, he works on it all the time. But then you go to his blocking. Now, his blocking's been better this year. It's still up and down. He was never known as a great blocker in his career, but the coaches weren't happy with his performance against the Browns in the blocking game, and neither was Ertz. And one of the things they did tell him, like, listen, if you want to play more than on third down in the red zone, you got to be more consistent in this area. So after the Browns game, Rice said that that Ertz, like, I don't know if it was on the Wednesday, took Cole Turner out before practice in pads and just worked on his blocking, worked on engaging and all that, and just the popping, right? But a lot of it is just keeping your hands in here and your body in here, right? And so that's what he was working on. It's more positioning and hand placement and just being consistent with that. And since then, it has been better. But it's really about a guy at this stage of his career working to get better. And again, he's not alone in that. Like that's what sets this team apart. Like you have a guy like that willing to do different things at this stage in his career, or to work on different things because it's not working as well. That's when you know you have a pretty good thing going. But that's, and then you have, like, he's constantly talking to Daniels, but also to Colson Yankoff, Cole Turner, Ben Sinnott, and, all those guys, like, they learned from him quite a bit. And Sinnott told me that earlier this year, like, just that he's learned a lot just about basically how to be a pro, and that stuff matters. Like you telling him that, showing you before practice what to do, giving them tips about how to take care of themselves, what they do away from the field, etc. Sinnott, though, so I know, like, Daniel's obviously a big time contributor. Mike Sainristil, a very good contributor. Like they've had multiple guys who've come in and played. Sinnott is playing, but he hasn't become this big time pass threat that I think people thought maybe he would because of when he was drafted. Well, keep in mind, this is one thing that Riley's pointed out a few times. He's playing behind two really good tight ends in Zach Ertz, of course, and then John Bates. Like Bates, as Riley says, might be as good as what he does as anybody in the league as far as just being a blocker, etc. So it's really hard for Sinnott to go out there and get the kind of reps he needs. And why, is he better than Zach Ertz at this point? No, he's not. Is he better than Bates? No, he's not. He's got to learn stuff in those areas. I'd almost consider him like to be a good recruit in college who is maybe getting all. It's not a redshirt year because he is playing, but almost like that where you're just going to have to kind of gradually build on your game. Be patient with him. I don't know that. I don't. I will say, like in the summertime, I didn't see him jump out the way maybe you thought you might. So it's not surprising to me that he's not a guy that's making big time plays in the pass game, but I do think he is a guy that can get there. And I think it's just a matter of being a little bit more patient with him. But the other thing that he has to get used to is you have to be way more precise on everything when you're playing at this level, especially if you're not like more uber talented than everybody else, right? And that's so you can get to college and you can get away with certain things. Everybody always says you can get away with certain things in college because you might just be more talented. Well, in the NFL, you're not. So I think he's got to, I think one of the things that will help being with Ertz is watching how the little subtle things that he does to get open, the patience with which he does it. So now they're not the same guys necessarily. So it's not like he can go out and just duplicate Ertz, but I do think watching how he does things will benefit him down the road. I'm curious to see what he does next training camp, where he progresses and how they see him. And, because they can make decisions on Bates and Ertz. And so I'd bring them both back. But so I think there's something to be, I think it could be he's in the same spot next year. But if he's your third tight end next year again, you're pretty good. So, but I would expect him to take a jump because that's when I see it. But I'm not sitting there thinking he's some sort of disappointment because he hasn't done what some of the other rookies have done. But he's had a lot to learn and he's playing behind two good tight ends. Let's get to the last one. And so the game matters. I think this will be a fun game for Washington, but I think they're playing it the right way. And there's a couple of things I want to tell you. Like usually for preparing for this particular podcast, I'm going to watch the opposing team for at least 2, maybe 3 hours, right? Just various things throughout the week. It could be, different cut-ups. I know, like, I talk to Logan all the time and Craig Hoffman. I know they do all this too. And so, but I like to do it so I can be informed and telling you things that I see and pick up on film that maybe you're not aware of, or maybe just tendencies or whatever. Well, I got to tell you this week, folks, I couldn't get any of that done. I watched a little bit of it and I have a knowledge of the Cowboys. So a lot of this is going to focus more on Washington, of course, because mom's in town. There's all sorts of things going on this week. Had a big story to write that's going to run next week. And that occupied a lot of time. In fact, I'm taping this at 9:00 on a Friday night. Folks, I'm usually done with this by about 5:00 on a Friday. So that's how much has been going on. So I only tell you that to say that it's hard to, I'm not going to say some of the stuff I normally say. Here's the other thing. I don't even know what Dallas is going to do. Like, it sounds like they're probably going to play quarterback Trey Lance. I think that would be a good thing for Washington. I didn't think too highly of him when he came out of the draft. I just felt like I don't think he has enough experience. And one thing that you've seen with Daniels this year, and you see with other quarterbacks, and I always read some stuff on Anthony Richardson about, the things he's going through in Indianapolis. And my first thought when he was coming out too is like, that's not enough starts. Like I thought it was if you wanted to maximize yourself as a quarterback, he needed to go back to college. Now I understand, like you're a top 5 pick, you go out. Like I get that. But it's hard to get better at that in the NFL with such little experience. And I felt the same way with Trey Lance. I never understood why the Niners traded up that much to go get him, because I just didn't think that as a talent, he had some talent, but he didn't have the experience. And I think that matters. And you see that with Jaden Daniels, how much that matters. Bo Nix has had a good start to his career, really experienced. So like, I think that really, really matters at that position as much as any in the NFL. And so they played Trey Lance. Good for Washington. But I like that they're not necessarily taking the approach of, resting their guys like the Rams are doing. I think getting that 6th seed matters because now you have a chance to to perhaps play the Rams or the Bucks versus the Eagles. Which one would you rather play? Now, we don't know about Jalen Hurts. If he's got a concussion, he can't play. That makes the Eagles different, but you don't know that. And you don't go out there to play or lose either. I think that's one thing that I would not like. I don't necessarily like what the Rams are doing. Everybody's got to do their team different, but I would try to get the better seed, because you're going to by losing, you could put yourself in a position where you are playing Philadelphia or something like that. But I do think for Washington, it matters. So you get a chance to get that 6th seed. Maybe you end up playing at Tampa. I think they would welcome that. I think they feel like they're so much better than that first game and would welcome a chance to prove that. So I think that would be good for them. And I think that's why you got to get Marshawn Lattimore back. Whether you're going to go up against Mike Evans or you're going up against, Nacua or, Cooper Kupp, all those guys, you want to get that guy back. But I do think Washington's in a much better spot than that opener. And I think Baker Mayfield can be, I think can be tremendous at times and not tremendous at other times. I think Jaden Daniels in this past game is a lot better than it was back then. So anyways, but the bottom line is this stuff still matters. And I think, listen, here's what Terry McLaurin had to say about all this.
Competing against them, and for us, we're focused on this week and not the future, but at the same time, we know what's ahead of us, and we want to have as much positive momentum. We want to be hitting on all cylinders as we go into this postseason run. It's extremely important to do that. It's extremely important to do that, and you want to have that confidence going into playing for it all.
One thing to keep in mind too, I think that helps Washington at this point is, compared to some other teams, like the Eagles are resting guys. Like they could have gone for that record, and you can debate whether that's good or not. But the bottom line is they've played football for 12 straight weeks. They had a bye in week 5. Washington has had a late bye. So if you want to keep building that momentum, I think having that late bye now helps you, because it hasn't been, you got that break. Like Jaden Daniels has been so refreshed since that break. I think this team has been as well. So I think that clearly helped them. You have a chance to, as McLaurin said, to keep building that momentum into this. So I think that's a good thing. So it's why I'm like that they're playing these guys. I wouldn't want them to sit out Jaden Daniels so he doesn't get hurt. I don't think you can play football scared or coach scared, especially when there's something to play for, as there is here. If there was nothing to play for, you go out there, maybe play a quarter or a half and then pull them. But at most, but I also think they're probably listen, folks, if it goes right, they should be pulling these guys after halftime. But we'll see if that happens. My one concern in this game, I will take a couple little quick look at what some of the matchups are. Like DaRon Bland against Terry McLaurin. Last time, he covered him on 23 of his 33 routes. This is according to Next Gen Stats. So I'm going to read you some stats from that game from Next Gen Stats on that matchup. And let's see if I can find them again. It was not good for McLaurin. He caught 2 catches for 6 yards when Bland was the nearest defender. So you think like, oh, wow, he had a great game against him. But the problem is when you watch the film, McLaurin was getting open all the time. Like that was not the problem for McLaurin, was not getting open. It was getting the ball. And I'm not even putting that on anything. It's not about like, oh, they weren't looking for him or whatever. There were reasons why he didn't get the ball time. Sometimes there's one time Daniels targets the other corner who's a backup and he's facing Noah Brown. It's a good matchup for Noah Brown. So he went there. Another time McLaurin's open, but he's working the other side of the field where he misfired with Zach Ertz they were not on the same page with how they saw it and where Ertz went. But also as Logan Paulson pointed out to me the one time, like, okay, if McLaurin's open on that play, but you work on the side of the field where you have options. If you look at Terry first, you have no more options. So in other words, it wasn't like it was bad decisions. The bottom line, though, is he was getting open against DaRon Bland. I felt like the Falcons last week did a really good job covering McLaurin. Like A.J. Terrell was really good, but they also used help a lot for him. The Eagles have had that plan. I didn't think the Cowboys did that. I think he was open, and I think he's going to have some big plays on Sunday. So especially coming off a tough game for him personally against the Falcons. But I think he'll be in position to get those. They misfired on a deep one. He obviously had the big plays late, the 86-yarder. But I think early in the game, I think he's going to beat Bland a couple times and get it. Now the question will be, can they slow Micah Parsons? Because Daniels had his worst game while facing pressure against the Cowboys. 1 for 9 on plays where he was considered under pressure. 2 interceptions when he was considered under pressure. So like that's That's atypical of Daniel. So that's the one big thing. Now with Dallas having Overshawn, the linebacker, out, like that was a big factor in that game. Having a fast guy like that and a fast guy like Micah Parsons really made a difference. So that's going to be the key there. If they can protect him, he's going to hit Terry for a couple big ones. Maybe I'll give him 2 touchdowns in this game just to cap it off. Because I do think, like I said, I don't think, and from what I've talked to people like Deron Bland, still kind of working through things as he came back late this year after an injury. So I think McLaurin will have some success against him, and that's going to be good for this team to get to 12 wins. Unbelievable, folks. They have a chance to get to 12 wins. And who at the beginning of the year, outside of anybody who thinks that every year, who would have expected this in the first year of this regime? Not me. But once it got going, you saw that, wow, I think they can get there. But it took a while to get to that point because you just realized there's something different with this team. There's something different with Jayden Daniels. They know it. The coaches know it. They know they've laid a foundation. They know they've done X, Y, and Z. But they also know without number 5, a lot of this other stuff is impossible. So anyway, enjoy it, folks. I think you're going to be happy, and we'll find out who their playoff matchup is after the game, and we'll find out what time and when they play, probably late Sunday night. So like I said, I'll be back after the Commanders close out the regular season against the Cowboys. So join me then. Talk to you next time.